Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, welcome to episode 19 of the Dan Wilkins Show here from DWB headquarters here in Pittman. We've got a very special guest from the basketball scene in South Jersey joining us this evening, Mark DiRugeris Jr., a double stint head coach over at Woodbury High School. Just led them to a sectional title in 24 and 25, and also the 2017 to 18 state title during his first stint. Also a JV baseball coach, I recently learned, at
Yes.
Woodbury. They're bringing back the
Second
program.
year. Getting
Second
back to
year.
varsity next year, Dan.
I think 2022 was the last time they had a varsity team, right?
Correct.
It was a
Correct.
couple
We're building
years
it back
after
up.
a couple years after Teddy Sparks was there.
Yes. Yep. Correct. We're
That's a,
building it back up. We'll be back to varsity next year. So
it's very
it's
good
good
to
times
hear.
ahead.
It's very good to hear. We'll get into that in a little bit, but for those of you that don't know too much about Mr. DiRugeris, well, first of all, you should. Second of all, Mark DiRugeris, he was a Woodbury 1,000-point scorer, class of '09, and then went to Chestnut Hill for 4 years, the Division II over in Pennsylvania, and then played 3 years of professional basketball in the American Professional Basketball League. Then went over to Woodbury to coach his alma mater, was there for 1 season, and then came back in the 23 to 24 season. He just wrapped up his second season with the Thundering Herd. Before we get into our deep dive of the day, like to let all of you know back at home that this podcast is brought to you by Harper Driving School. Over 90% of students who take their New Jersey State driving test with Harper pass on the first. All right, Mark. Thank you very much for being here this evening. I know we ran a little bit behind, but I know that we're going to get into some great conversations as we get into the spring season. I know you just came back from a JV baseball game, but the bulk of what we're going to be talking about today is basketball. And one of the things that I wanted to start off with was just talking about the Colonial Conference that you went to high school in, of course, with Woodbury. With the Colonial Conference, when I talk to people about it, is so compelling to people because it's the smallest conference in the state. It's got 12 teams, only 10 of them play baseball. But when we're talking about basketball, they've
Right.
got a full 12-team slate. But no conference comes even close to being as small as the Colonial is. And it's
Mhm.
also made up of a lot of small towns, a lot of very tight knit communities like Woodbury, Gloucester, Audubon. They're all very close together. So considering it's been a couple of years since you played with the Thundering Herd as a high school player, what would you say what the experience was like playing in the Colonial at that time?
I think it's the most fun conference to play in because, like you just pointed out, we've been playing in the youth leagues against each other since we were 6 or 7 until we get to high school and we're 14 to 18. So we've known each other our whole lives. Like Woodbury versus Paulsboro is always a big rivalry. Woodbury versus Haddonfield, Woodbury versus Audubon, Collingswood, Lindenwold. I mean, we played against all those kids growing up against each other in the youth league. So, it's a different feel than what you get out of the Olympic or out of the Cape or things like that because we kind of have known and played against each other for 10 years going into high school, which seems crazy, but no, for sure. Like it's a very underrated conference. Going back to the days of the early 90s, the early 2000s, late 2000s, like just really, really good basketball. I think it gets overlooked a lot by some of the conferences like the Olympic and others like that. But again, for the most part, a lot of these kids that play for these teams are homegrown, so you get to see the full maturation process going forward. So, um, I think it's one of the most underrated conferences in South Jersey for sure.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with you there. I think that the Olympic is a bit of a different story because it's less geography based. I mean, you've got
Mhm.
Rancocas Valley, and then it goes all the way down to I'm trying to even think. Bishop Eustace, and there's some other
Right.
schools down there that are part of it. CCTS is all the way down in like
Yeah.
Blackwood and Sicklerville. So
Seneca, like
Seneca's
all,
in the middle of nowhere. So
yeah,
no, I mean you're right.
yeah,
I think that I think the way that I see it is when it comes to this conference, there's really nothing else like it. Everything. I mean,
right.
the Colonial's geography based, but the furthest school away, back when up until a couple of years ago, was Overbrook, and that's
Yes.
also because they were in the middle of nowhere. But most
Right.
of the schools, because I grew up in Audubon, I went to Audubon. Almost
Okay.
all the schools are within 15 minutes of each other, maybe 20
Right.
if you count Paulsboro. So I always loved attending Colonial Conference games just because everybody knew each other. Everybody
Yep.
had those rivalries. You can put two teams together in the Colonial, and it's almost always either a rivalry or a really good matchup. So I've
Yep.
always enjoyed it for that reason. Then after Woodbury, you graduated class of '09, 1,000 point scorer with the Thundering Herd. Went to Chestnut Hill over in Pennsylvania, spent 4 years there. Had several accolades that are a little bit too long for me to dive into at the moment, but um, I will say Division Two athletics don't get discussed as much as Division One
No.
or Division Three, because Division Three is all the little guys, but there's some D2s that are smaller campus wise and student body wise than D3s. Um,
Yep.
there was a rumor mill that one of the JUCOs in Pennsylvania is going to go to. I'm not going to say who, but there's a JUCO in Pennsylvania with like 1,500 kids that's going to try to go D2 and join the PSAC. But
Okay.
for Chestnut Hill, it's one of those things where those Division twos, the really good D2s, could beat some bottom feeding D1s in the mid majors. It's a very real possibility, and it's a very real reality. So
Right.
it doesn't get discussed as much. Describe a little bit your time playing with the Griffins over in Chestnut Hill, and overall just a D2 student athlete um, during that time.
So it was a lot like Woodbury. It was a smaller school, about kids, 1,200 kids, if that. Everyone kind of knew everybody. So I definitely felt right at home coming in, because it was like that small school feel like Woodbury was. But the basketball was phenomenal. I mean, you had guys from the public league in Philly, the Catholic league in Philadelphia. Um, we had guys from South Jersey and New York and other places, and I mean, it was just as competitive as any environment I've ever been in, especially as a freshman coming in. Like, I mean, we had two of my best friends that coach now. Julian McFadden's at Springside Chestnut Hill, and Brandon Williams is the head coach at Penn Charter. They were both my teammates. My Brandon was a junior and Jules was a senior when I came in as a freshman. I mean, those were the best guys to go up against. Just hard nosed players and high IQ, knew the game, and but they made me feel right at home when I came in. And it was competitive league like this. The CACC. I mean, you had Philly U, Coach Herm McGee coaching them. You had Wilmington. You had Felician, Bloomfield. Nyack Dominican. Like, you had teams that were had a lot of Rough Riders on the team and could really hoop. So like you said, like a lot of the D2s can be a lot of the lower level D1s out there. Because it also goes to the fact that if a kid is maybe on the verge of like maybe getting a walk on spot or maybe a partial scholarship to a low level D1, they can get a full ride at a Division 2 school and take that offer instead. So you get that kind of competition in there going up against each other, and especially in the CACC, it was very guard oriented. The PSAC has more bigs, bigger type players, but the CACC was more guard oriented, so you never really could take a game off at all. Not that you wanted to, but like in that you couldn't afford it if you wanted to. So, but yeah, my time at Chestnut Hill was great. I went all 4 years. I loved every bit of it. My coaches were great. The staff was great. Teachers were great. We had the Sisters of St. Joseph teach us. So I had nuns basically in every class teach us. So that was cool. So just a great experience overall. I made lifelong friends there. So
Yeah, are smaller. Sometimes the small colleges are smaller than the big high schools here in South
yes,
Jersey. yeah, those really small campuses where, over the course of 4 years, everybody gets to have these personal relationships and stuff like that, and these lifelong friendships with these players. But I didn't know that about the CACC, the
Yep.
guard-oriented stuff, and
Oh yeah.
that's good to know because there's a lot of Pennsylvania colleges that are doing very well over there. You were talking about Bloomfield; they're actually they are in one sport, which is wrestling. They are Division 1. They're Division
Okay.
2 and everything else, but they've moved up to D1 in wrestling, which I think
I did
is
not
is
know that.
really interesting. I think they did that in the last couple of years. There's a
Okay.
Collingswood player that's committed there, and I'm like, that's not a D1 school. Why is he saying that? And then I'm looking it up, and I'm like, oh, they are D1 just in that, which is pretty interesting. But after I should say your time at Chestnut Hill, like we said, really small schools. You're saying nuns in every classroom. It's a different experience for everybody going to one of those private schools and everything. And I think you're absolutely right about the maybe the PWOs, the preferred walk-ons at something like a really small mid-major might end up getting a full ride at a D2, but it doesn't have the glitz and glamour of Division 1 basketball. Everybody sees the division and one. They see the number 1 and they freak out. But, there's some D1 programs that probably shouldn't be there. Look at St. Francis. They made I think they made the NCAA tournament a couple of years ago, and
Yeah.
now they're down. They made it this year actually, and they're moving down to
Yes.
Division 3 at the 26-27 season. So
Yep.
there's over 350 Division 1 schools. Should all of them be there? Probably not. But some schools just can't handle the not the limelight, but the cost that goes into hosting Division 1 sports. That's why I don't think Rowan is going to make that jump unless they get some really powerful donors in there because their football stadium, it's great. The Richard Wacker Stadium over in Glassboro. It's a great
Right.
stadium, but it only holds 7,000 maybe. If they were to
Right.
go to FCS Division 1, they would need to knock that down and build a whole new thing, which would take 5 or 6 years anyway. But
Mhm.
after Chestnut Hill, spent 3 years in a league that I actually didn't get too much information on going into this, the American Professional Basketball League. Um, and they said you played professionally there, 2016 title. I just wanted to get a little bit of an explanation about that because I honestly hadn't heard of it. I didn't know if it was still around or maybe if you had anything from that.
So I played when I graduated Chestnut Hill in 13. From 2013 to 2015, I played in the LEB Silver Division in Spain. I spent 2 years there, and then after my 2 years there, I played. It was semi-professional in Willingboro. It was called the APBL. Played for the New Jersey Thunder. It was called. I'm not sure if the league's still around. They had a lot of teams in 2016 when I played. We traveled everywhere. We traveled to Virginia, New York, North Carolina. I mean, we traveled all over the place. Our home games were at Willingboro. We played at that JFK Center. It was
Okay.
called. Um, so I played there for a year. I actually played some of my teammates. I had Samaj Inge was one of my teammates. He used to play at Woodrow Wilson back in the day. Played at
Right.
Temple, and played overseas for a little while. And Kenny Avant was my coach for that
Really?
year at the time. Yeah. So
He's the correct me if I'm wrong. He's East Side now or
he's the current Camden Eastside head coach. Yeah, he was
okay.
my head coach at Woodbury High School in 2008 2009. So a little bit of a full circle moment. That was kind of cool. But yeah, I played 2 years over in Spain, and then my last year I played for the New Jersey Thunder in the APBL, which was a very competitive league too. Because you look at it like guys are trying to get their next contract. Guys are trying to get tape, so they don't have a game to waste either. I mean, it was full go. So it was a very competitive league too. I enjoyed that league very much.
Yeah, Spain was not in my
No,
notes here.
that's all good.
I can only do so much research. I interviewed Andrew Daly. He's the Gateway
Oh,
football head
nice.
coach, and I did that maybe 6 7 months ago. And I brought up the fact that he was recruited FCS as a football quarterback out of Eastern, and like he was top 150 he was like a top 10 player in the state when he graduated high school, and he literally stopped me in my tracks and he said, "How did you know that?" And I'm just like, "Research, got to do
Yeah,
it." You got to do it. But no, even that I
yeah,
didn't have Spain in there. I was
yeah.
gonna ask about like EuroLeague basketball at some point because that is such a different can of worms than what a lot of casual basketball fans watch in NCAA and the NBA. It's very different. I mean, some of the best players to ever come out of the NBA have played EuroLeague. Even recently, you can just say Luka Doncic and Victor Wembanyama. But where I see this kind of success in the EuroLeague, there are so many people that are just jockeying for any roster spot they can get because basketball is such an unforgiving sport. There's only 15 players on every NBA team. There's a handful on every G League team, but even then, there's 95% of the G League players are never going to step foot on an NBA court. So
Right.
there's always so much where everybody's trying to be that guy. Everybody's trying to be the guy that this team wants. And that's how European basketball is successful. That's how basketball overseas. I mean, why do you think that Dwight Howard's playing in like Taiwan or something like that? That's just because there's if the NBA was 60 teams and probably had 30 guys on a roster, yeah, he'd be on an NBA team. But he's not
Right.
because there's only so many spots there. So yeah, describe to me a little bit about Spain and the European basketball. I assume you lived there. Was it because Andrew Daly he also played European football in Germany
Hmm.
for 2 years.
Yep.
So I asked him, like what was the pay like? How did you live there? Was there a language barrier? What was that like?
Mm. Timmy Breaker played in Germany as well. I think in the same league, to be honest. That might be a question you ask him too.
Will do.
He's got stories for days too. Yeah, that's somebody you got to write down. Yeah, it was awesome. I played in the third division in Spain. So you have the ACB, like the Real Madrid's, the uh, 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 the other. I mean, there's a ton.
The other
But Real Madrid
Spanish
was like the
teams,
top
yeah.
team at the time. Um, and then there was the LEB Gold, which was the second division, which were kind of like all the junior teams of those ACB teams. And then the third league was there's five leagues in total. So I played in the third. But it was awesome. It was competitive every night. You know, my first year. I lived in a place called Marin, which was in the northwest coast, basically right on the beach, which was phenomenal. The basketball was great. The fans were the best fans ever. I mean, they were diehards. Because really, like, we had one or two games a week, and that's where the whole town would go. Like, they would that's what they would do. So like, the town was probably about 7,000 people, and there'd be 5,000 people at a game easy because the gym was that big to seat. Um, and all this stuff you see, like with the fans at these European soccer games and basketball games with the crowd noises and the flare guns and the drums, it's the same thing in the lower leagues too. They might get away with a little bit more actually in the
Hmm,
lower leagues because there's not a lot of security there.
good point.
So yeah, no, it was a blast. It was a really good time, and there was high level. Um, I mean, we played high level teams. I mean, on my team, um, we had my point guard was Luis Guzman, who I think he's an assistant coach in New Hampshire now. But he played at Temple. He was a point guard for at Temple under Cheney. He was a really really good player. I mean, it was a very competitive league. But you're right, Dan. Like, I like watching European basketball a little bit more just because there's a whole bunch of skill there. It's pick and roll heavy. It's more of a chess match than a checkers match that you would get in the NBA. It's more of how can I out scheme you um, than how can I out athleticize you or how can I out talent you or anything like that. It's how can I. It's way more X's and O's than it is in the NBA. And I mean, it was fun. It was fun learning new things, learning a new offense. Playing, I played both positions. I played one and two, more two, which was cool. But just the beauty of the game was so awesome. Everyone talks about like the beauty of the game, and that overseas in Europe, they kind of like exemplify that. So I love my time over there. It was a lot of fun, and I learned a ton going into coaching from playing there, which was cool.
Yeah, I would imagine playing in Europe allows some of your philosophies to carry over into high school ball. because what people see is what they see on TV, what the kids see, and that's the NBA, that's college basketball.
Right.
They're usually not watching third division Spanish basketball. So,
No.
unless you're some kind of stat geek like I am, that's usually not going to happen. So, I think that that's an excellent thing to apply is how the international basketball scene is so much different. Correct me if I'm wrong, but over in like Europe, there's no 3-second violations in the paint and stuff like that,
No.
and that's how like guys like Victor Wembanyama got so successful in France is by playing by the FIBA rules. He could just stand there all day. He could just
Yeah.
set up camp over there, and he'd be good. But in the NBA, it allows him or it disallows him from being that let's see what's the right word, being that heavily in the paint or being that heavily close to the rim, because and there's I think there's no offensive interference either, or at least not in the same way that there is in the NBA. So those games are
Yep.
lower scoring. You're not getting the 140 to 135 like we do every night
No.
with the NBA. So I absolutely agree with you there. But that's good to know about Spain. We got some more
For sure.
European love out here. Um,
Yes, sir.
yeah, it's definitely interesting hearing about all these guys that are going overseas to play. Just because you think about it, there's 350-ish D1 schools. There's got to be at least 1,000 D2s, maybe 2 or 3,000 D3s. Those players either have to go somewhere or they have to stop playing. And there's not enough leagues in
Right.
the U.S. to make that happen. It's not like minor league baseball where you have 4 levels, maybe 150 players in the minor leagues in total, not to mention all of the other leagues that exist, like the Independent Association and the Atlantic League. And as a baseball guy, just going into this, just the way that I see it is like basketball is such more, like I said, an unforgiving sport. It's a very unforgiving
Right.
sport. So coming back to Woodbury, you got back to coach your alma mater for the 2017 to 2018 season. I'll be asking Darius Quarles the same question when we talk to him next week because he
There
also
you go.
came back to coach his alma mater. Um, Coming back to coach is one thing. Coming back to coach the school that you went to in the same exact gym is another. What was the first impression that you had when you stepped in as a Woodbury head coach after, or excuse me, during the 2017-18 season?
It was a little different all around. A little bit of the same, but a little bit different too. I started off when I came back from Europe. I coached at Bishop Eustace High School under Bob Falconero for a year,
Falconero, yeah.
kind of get my feet wet in the coaching field. And then after that, I ended up coaching at Chestnut Hill for a year, doing a little player development, doing a little scouting, a little bit of stuff like that. Um, and then Woodbury opened up, and Woodbury just came off a state title loss to Verona the year before. So coming into it, it was like a nice story, but there was an expectation to win right away, which I was all for, because they lost Jazir Noel, but they got back a good core of their group from last year to come back. So um, you know, and with a different coach, a different philosophy, um, a different way of doing things, a different way of holding the players accountable. Um, I knew it was going to be a little bit of a change, no matter if I knew everybody there or not. Like it was nice having a parent group that I kind of almost grew up with. Um, that kind of knew me growing up, which was nice. That was something that was seamless and that I can get used to. And the players just worked, man. Like I had, with all the talent around it, like, Aaron Estrada is who he is. He's that guy. He's probably the most talented, most skilled basketball player I've ever been around. But he was one of my hardest workers. I mean, he wanted to work more than anybody. So I had a group of kids that were hungry and that really wanted to get after it. And there were some teaching points. Like there were some things we had to learn from each other. Like there'd be some times where we got after each other a lot and had to learn each other and things like that. But I think they kind of fed off our energy and they rolled with it and it was great. So coming back was fun, but it was a little bit getting used to as well. So but that year was awesome. Something for the ages.
Yeah, coming back and then yeah, just straight up winning a state title. That's not easy. And not just that,
No.
but also coming back, as you said, with an expectation to win. They they get their
Right.
head coach out after a state final loss, as you said, to Verona. Um, and yeah, it's never easy to come back, but it's also harder when the expectation is, yeah, if we're worse than we are last year, then you're not going to be around long. Um,
Right.
and of course, I think the year before was it the year before, or the year after that Justin Barringer was there. Might have been the year before, if I recall correctly. But I think let me take a look. 2016,
What?
17.
Yeah. Yeah. The year before Behringer
That
was
was
there.
Barringer that went 26 and 6, 13 and
Yep.
3 in the Colonial, and then as you said, beat Paulsboro in the sectional final to win that, and then Burlington City lost to Verona 69-54. So in that first season, 21 and 12 was your record. Played some very good teams on that, and then of course won the state title over Kreskill, 60-58, 2 points. And
Hmm.
before that was a very very compelling regular season that you had as well. So your first season, and at this point your only season in your first stint with Woodbury. Describe to me
Yep.
that that kind of program building that you did and the path to a state championship that you guys had that year.
So we had a couple guys that um were kind of in the rotation, but didn't get heavy minutes starting. And obviously Aaron was the one starter that was a key addition back on the team. So just getting used to that. I'm big on skill development. I'm big on player development. Um, that year with that group, I ran a lot of 4 out 1 in, kind of Jay Wright Villanova type offensively. Offense, X's and O's wise. I kind of wanted to get the other guys um, really working on their shooting, really working on their catch and shoot ability, their catch, pump, fake, drive, just the easy stuff. And then with Aaron, it was really just trying to get him his confidence to be up, working on that mid range game, working on taking guys to the basket, just trying to get him to understand that he's that guy. And it kind of flowed through. Like we played a lot of tough teams. We played Cherokee that year. Coach Cassie always runs a tight ship over there. He's awesome. We played Camden Catholic. We played the Hill School, who was really tough out of Pennsylvania. We lost to them, I think, by 3 or 4. I want to say.
I'll check you on
I
that.
forget.
It
I
was by
forget. We
it was
were.
by
I think we
one.
were close.
It was by one,
One. Okay.
48-47.
Yeah. We played them tough, and they. I mean, we were an undersized team. I mean, our tallest kid was 6'4", maybe. At the time, 6'5", I give them. So, um, I always like the undersized teams because they always want to guard and they always want to make an impact and make a statement. So, um, I think once we got comfortable and we got into a flow, I mean, a lot of those kids played together since they were little kids. Like going back to the point I made about the Colonial Conference and those teams playing in the same youth leagues all year together for years and years. That group kind of had that same gel. They played since they were in kindergarten all the way up to now. So, it was about getting them, gelling at the right time. And um, they loved playing defense. They loved it. I didn't have to kind of get it out of them. They just loved the guard. Um, and they were very coachable. So just getting through the tough times. And I asked them before the season started, I said, what do you guys want to do? Like, what's your goal? Where do you guys want to be? And they said, we want to be back at the rack and we want to win it this time. I said, okay, well, that comes with a lot of, that's going to come a lot of work, more work than, you thought you needed, more work than you're anticipating. So, um, I'm going to hold you to that standard and more. And there's times they did not like me at all, but, that's coaching. That's how it goes. So, they're a special group because I don't think many people had them, especially with the season we had because we had some tough losses. I think we had like a 5 or 6 game losing streak at one point, um, or we had like 2 losses in a row, then we won, then 2 losses in a row, then a
Right.
win. Like it was going back and forth a little bit, and you always hear the chatter, but I knew what this team had once we got into playoffs. We started rolling a little bit, and you see the end product. So sometimes you got to roll with the hot team.
Yeah, no, I mean, listen, I love what you said um, about the kids setting that standard that they want to go because
Hmm.
they were at the Rutgers Athletic Complex that previous year
Right.
under Coach Barringer, and you weren't. So the way that it was that, yeah, those kids have been there, and with the new coach, they were the ones to set the bar. So I like the fact that they set the standard and that you held them to it. So I mean
Right.
that's always a good thing to do, is to get that input from the kids, because sometimes the coaches are like, yeah, we got to go back to Rutgers and we got to win another state title, but it's another thing to hear that drive and ambition from the actual players themselves, because they want it. They want that kind of winning, and they want that kind of success. So
For sure.
in the South Jersey Group 1 playoffs, you beat Audubon, Haddon Township, Penns Grove, and Glassboro, and then Point Pleasant Beach in the semifinal, and then Cresgill 60 to 58 in the state championship. Just describe to me that feeling that you had. Bring yourself back to Piscataway on, let's see, March 11th, 2018. That Sunday night Group One championship, 2-point game. I didn't find video of it, so I couldn't find the end of the game, but seems like it was close, and I'm sure that that's not an easy feeling, not just a state championship, but a close one that you don't know if you're going to win it. So just bring yourself back to that moment and describe to me just how the feeling was. First year head coach, first year coaching at the highest level, a high school basketball team, and then that feeling of winning.
I think the whole playoffs that year was awesome. Audubon was a good game. Haddon Township was a nail biter.
Mm-hmm.
I think Patty is one of the best coaches around. He gets the most out of his kids. He's very technical. He works with those kids hard. So I'm a big fan of Patty. Every time we play, it always seems like a 3 point game out all the time. It's very nerve wracking. He pushes me to be my best too. And then the Pennsgrove game was out of all the games we played, probably including the state title, and the kids will probably attest this too. The Pennsgrove game was probably their most fun game.
Mm.
The sectional semis we play, and I don't have video. I wish I did. It was packed. We played at Pennsgrove. You couldn't find a seat. Both baselines were filled, um, and it was rowdy in there. It was rowdy. The whole game. It was a tough game. I think we were down by 8 going into the fourth, and we clawed back and won. Dame's my guy. I love Dame. He's a great coach. And we knew it was going to be a scrap. It was going to be a rock fight, and it was. I wish I had video. You'd be like amazed. You'd watch that over and over again. That was that was our most fun game. And after we got out of that game, I was like, guys, like after that game, like if you guys don't have confidence to take this all the way, I don't know. Like I just don't know. So the Glassboro game was another nail biter. They had a good game, and we played on the road. We were road dogs. I think we were a 6 seed that year, so we had to play all like after the first two, we had to play all on the road after that.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and the Point Pleasant game, the semifinals. I mean, Aaron kind of just took over that game. I think he had 30-9 or 31-9. Um, and he was getting double and triple teamed, and it just didn't matter.
For good reason.
Yeah, no, for sure. I don't know why more people didn't want to play him in different coverages that year either, but he just kind of made that game his own. And going into the state final game, I think we were ready to go. Um, it was a lot similar, like when I got into the locker room before the Haddon Township game this year. The vibe was a lot similar to the state title game in 18. I think the kids were ready to go. I kind of kept it short, just told them I loved them. And that we were good to go. Um, and they went out. There was ebbs and flows. We were down 8 at one point, then we were up 6, then we were down 7, then up 5. It was seesawing back and forth. And the last play of the game, it's funny because I think it was tied, and with like 11 seconds or so, and everyone's like, "Oh, what?" We had it on the sideline out of bounds, and we're like, "Oh, what play are we going to run?" I was like, "What play are we going to run?" I said, "We're just going to give Aaron the ball, and he's going to go to work." I was like, "We ain't calling no plays." I said, "This is when the stars. This is when big time players make big time plays." I said, "Sometimes it's Jimmys and Joes over X's and O's." So, I said, "Aaron, you're going to get the ball. You're going to make a play," and he did that. Got to the line, knocked 2 down, and the rest is history. So sometimes you just have to have that faith in your guys to make a play. Sometimes I see coaches kind of overdoing it with the X's and O's, and sometimes you just got to pick your matchups and take advantage of it, and have faith in your guys. So and trust in their work that they've been doing all year. And yeah, everyone kind of looked at me like, oh, that's what we're doing. I said, yes, that's what we're doing. We're giving our best player the ball to make a play. So it was just cool, man. Like we never won a state title in basketball before. We're predominantly a football school, as we should be. I mean, we've had so much success in football over the past 100 years, and just bringing that title back was super cool for everybody. It was very special. So yeah,
Yeah, you were talking about Aaron Estrada. I mean, that I was looking at his playoff run. First round 21, second round 27, and then Pennsgrove game he had 24. Sectional final had 20. There's not a lot of rebound info in this. I don't think NJ.com might have had those stats back then. Not back then. It was six
probably
years
not.
ago. I'm saying it like I'm reading an ancient scroll. But Point Pleasant Beach, he had that. That's one we do have in 30 and 11, and then
And
six
11.
steals. Six steals. Semifinal
Yeah,
game he had or I'm sorry, the state final versus Cresskill, 23 points, 3 boards, 6 assists, and 5 steals.
sounds
I mean, that's
right.
incredible. Finished with
Sounds about.
nearly 1,600 points. But
Yep.
that's just that guy.
Yeah.
And listen, when Aaron Estrada graduated high school, let's see, 2018. Let's see, I must have been in middle school at the time because I graduated just last year from Audubon. So
Okay.
even I knew who the guy was. That's how good
There
he
it is.
was. That is how good Aaron Estrada was, and um, hopefully
Still is.
hopefully he's doing great things now. But
He is.
yeah, you got an update on him?
Yeah, he's playing. He's playing right now for. He just got off an injury. Playing right now for the Motor City Cruise at the G League.
Really?
So, the Detroit Pistons G League affiliate. Had a good year, and he was having a good year. Got a little banged up. Getting back healthy now. So, it's looking up for him. So, I'm super proud of him. So, um, if he makes it, he's the second Woodbury player since Dave Budd to make an NBA roster. Dave
Okay.
Budd played in the 50s into the 60s for the New York Knicks.
Yeah, back when
Uh,
50s and
so
60s.
yeah,
Okay.
hey, he played
Estrada
against
would
Will
mean a little bit
Chamberlain.
more.
Yeah, so
Not when Wilt
yeah,
Chamberlain was averaging
and he
50
works,
points a
man.
game.
Like he works. Like I remember getting a call from one of his coaches at Hofstra, asking if I could talk to him because he's working out too much and he needs to tone it down a little bit. I said the kid wants to go to the NBA, so I said, and you guys also have the keys. So if you guys need to lock the gym, you guys have the keys. I can't make the trip up there to lock the door for you. So, um, so yeah, he's just a worker, man. That's God gave him a lot of gifts, but one of the gifts they gave him was his work ethic. So he works super hard.
That is amazing. That story there. You
Yeah,
guys have the keys to
yeah.
the gym if you want to lock them out, but I'm not making that trip up there. That's great. Um,
I ain't making that trip.
and with risers there are fallers. You won the state championship in
Yeah,
2017, 2018. We discussed this before we went on air. Not on air, but on the recording side of things. There was a unknowing NJSIAA summer league discrepancy that unfortunately caused you to resign after the end of the first stint. Obviously, it's water under the bridge now. But just from what I was
sure.
reading from the Courier Post, it was something involving coaches being on the bench prior to a certain date, and also a summer league jersey kind of affiliation thing. Um, you've had almost 7 years to kind of reflect on it, and now that you're back at Woodbury, as we said before we went on, it's water under the bridge. So, how did that incident, change maybe your perspective or your not your philosophies, but your mindset, and how it caused you to grow as a coach? Maybe some personal growth in there.
Well, I just think as a young coach, I learned the hard way. Especially coming off a season like that. I learned a ton from it. You know, got to read the handbook. You got to understand the rules. Just because you did this, you're not. at a certain level where you can do what you want. And learning that at 26, 27, whatever year I was, you just take it and you learn from it. So I was able to get back on my feet. It was tough leaving, but, um, you know, rules are rules, and I understood, and, life goes on. So, like I said, I was able to bounce back and get back going. And I knew I would get back to a certain spot. I didn't know it would be back at Woodbury being the head coach, but, I knew I would work hard and get to a certain spot. So, just being young and dumb and, you know, um, not being privy to, the rules and just learning from it is really all I can say about it. So, um, like I said, life teaches you valuable lessons and you move on from it.
Yeah, I mean, as I was reading more into that story from the summer of 2018, it it less dawned on me that it was a rules violation, but it dawned on me more how weird the rules are in that case. I mean, yes, you violated a rule, but you violated a rule that I don't think really is thought out well because I mean, listen, the football teams, they do the 7-on-7s. They don't have the same things where like they can wear the pennies that they wear or the like sleeveless jerseys that they wear for the summer leagues, the 7-on-7s. They don't have
Right.
to go by a different name. And it almost seems like football gets a one up or gets a free pass because of it. And I've never been a fan of that. Um, Listen, we did a soccer showcase back in 20 no, it was this past summer, 24, and it was up in
Okay.
East Hampton, up where Life Center plays their soccer games,
Yeah.
and we were covering a whole bunch of teams from Mercer, a whole bunch of teams from Burlington County. Shawnee was one of the teams that was there. Steiner, Hopewell Valley,
Nice.
Hamilton West, and Allentown, and so many other teams. And I'm talking to the organizer, and I said, "Isn't that just Steinert's team?" Or no, I said, "Isn't that just Hamilton West's team?" And they said, "No, you have to call them." Uh, I'm sorry, they said, "Is this Shawnee's team?" And I said,
Yeah.
"Yeah, that looks like Shawnee's team." And he said, "No, you have to call them Medford SC. There's NJSIA rules about it." And I'm like, they're literally wearing, it says Renegades on the front, and it's the exact same roster from Shawnee Boys Soccer. Why are we playing pretend? It's the same coaches, it's the same head coach,
Yeah.
same assistants, everybody. But
Yeah.
we have to play the game of
Yeah.
pretend. I've never liked
Yeah.
that.
Yeah. And I think too, Dan, also like I think times have changed too, where there's so many more opportunities in the summertime for kids to get spotlighted and get looked at. Like you have Philly Live now, which is one of the
Hmm.
biggest events in the country. And they're both in June and early July, where kids can get kids from all over the place can get looked at. There's hundreds of college coaches that come to Philly Live every year. You have New Jersey Live. There's all these different live events now during the live period where you can showcase your kids and summer leagues. So um, it's a really cool opportunity. Um, I think now that times have changed a little bit, there's a lot more opportunities for kids to get spotlighted, and I think it's great because that's the main goal, right? You want to get your kids to school.
Absolutely.
You want them getting looked at. You want to spotlight your kids the best way you can and the most you can. And I think now Jersey and Philly are doing a phenomenal job of doing that. And even Maryland and Delaware, I think, are having live events too now that we might look into as well to see if we were able to go down there and you know try and test our skill against some DMV teams this summer or something like that. I think would be pretty cool. But just the amount of opportunities that are there for kids now to get looked at is really, really cool. So I think they've done a really good job of kind of changing the mold a little bit about it, getting with the times a little bit. So I think that's really cool from even 7, 8 years ago where there weren't as many opportunities to get seen.
Right.
Um, so they're doing a really good job at that. I will give them that.
Yeah, I agree. And whether you agree or disagree with the rules, things happened. And
For sure.
during your time between your first and second Woodbury stint, had assistant jobs at Bishop Eustace, like you said before, Wildwood
Yep.
Catholic, St. Joe's Hamilton, and Pensgrove, which is funny considering the semifinal game from 2018 you were talking about. Um, was there any specific reasoning as to why you bounced around so much? Did you want to find different philosophies that you could apply to your own? Was it just you couldn't find your footing? Because that's four programs in 4 or 5 years. Um, not a lot of guys move around that much, but you seemed ambitious to find good roles.
I loved Wildwood Catholic. That was a place that I was trying to be at for a while.
Hmm.
I loved it down there. It's there's nothing to do in the wintertime down the shore but go to a basketball game. And bingo. There it's phenomenal. We had the greatest fans down there. They loved their basketball program. We had a great team. I was just traveling a lot. I was living in Voorhees at the time,
Okay.
going back and forth a lot from Wildwood back to Voorhees. So trying to find a fit closer to home was probably a little bit better for my physical and mental well being. Um, and then Pensgrove, I love Pensgrove too. I just love how hard those kids play. Um, I love the hard nosed play. I love watching. I love watching good competition. I love being in the mix. And Dame and me share a lot of the same philosophies on the court. Um, and that team just worked, man. Like we had a good year that year. When I was at Penn State, we lost to Woodbury actually in the sectional semis, I think, or the second round, by 4 in overtime,
Okay.
40-44. So, I mean, we pushed the state champs to overtime that year. I mean, we had a good squad. Um, I just think everyone has a different path. Um, and I've been a part of great programs. Um, but all roads lead to where you want to be. And this opportunity came up after Penns Grove, and I interviewed, and the administration was great. The kids were awesome, and it was just the place I wanted to be. And I know it was ironic that I was there before, um, but it was just some place I could get back to running a program and getting it going. So I learned so much from all the coaches I played for. I mean, you look at it, I played for you know Coach Falconero and Coach Luis. I mean, they're two of the best in my opinion. And my family's really tight with Coach Farraco and his family at Middle Township. So like I used to play all the time down there. I mean, learning from different coaches like that's been phenomenal for me. Um, and even Dame, like learning stuff from Dame has been awesome. He's been around the block forever, and he knows his stuff and he gets the most out of his kids. So just being around people that know more than you is a blessing, in my opinion, and something that shouldn't be taken for granted. I think, and I'm not naming names. I think there's coaches out there that probably think they know it all, and it
Mm.
doesn't get them very far. Um, all over the place. But I think like I know because I don't know. Like I want to know different stuff all the time. Like I'm online, looking up X's and O's and looking up different ways to help the team and going to different coaching clinics and just things like that. And I think that's so important because you got to be a lifelong learner. Like if you feel like you know everything, like that's the time where you kind of stop developing and getting better. And you got to be a lifelong learner in this game because the game is adapting. Like every year, it seems like it's a new game. So you got to get with the times and get with the program and keep up with it. And the kids are a new generation of kids too. Like, you gotta, you know, you got to get in times with the kids as well and get to know them and all that. So I could just say I'm blessed because I've been a part of some great programs with some great coaches. So they've only made me be better. So that's probably why I've been on the path I've been on.
Yeah, you made some very good points there. First of all, Wildwood being dead during the winter. Yeah, trust me. I had
Yeah,
one of my roommates
it's fun. Don't get
went
me
to
wrong.
Wildwood
It's just
Catholic.
not a lot of people down
Yeah, and
there.
they said about Wildwood Catholic, they were just like, yeah, there's nothing to do there if it's not May through September. So
Yeah,
I get it. I go down there for a week every year. It's lively, it's fun, but then when it's not, it's not. So I get it. No, but I liked what you said there about being a lifelong learner and some people who think that they know it all. Trust me, I don't know it all about broadcasting. That's why I go to these Rowan Pizza with the Pros and, talk to people that have been
right,
in the industry for 30, 40 years. Regardless of your profession, there will always be somebody who knows more than you do. And there will always be somebody
right.
who will know more than you do, somebody maybe younger than you that will eventually surpass you in that regard. So it's always very interesting to
Mhm.
see, and I absolutely agree with you with Penns Grove, Damian Ware, masterclass of a head coach. I love what he does. Um,
For sure.
when they were in the just a tangent question, when they were in the sectional semis in 2018, did they have the gray court at the time, or was it just normal? Because I love their red and gray court that they have.
I think so. I didn't really pay attention to their court.
Well, usually, yeah, you're paying attention to the
I was
game.
either fired up. I was either fired up or yelling at the officials. So I'm not too sure.
It was all just a
Yeah, I'm
blur.
not. Yeah, it was a little bit of a blur. I think so though. I think they had the old gray court there for sure.
So when
Yeah.
yeah, you were talking about your assistant jobs, Eustis, Wildwood Catholic, St. Joe's Hamilton, and then Penns Grove. When Lionel Payne 2 years ago stepped down as the Woodbury head coach, he is now over at Glassboro, which we'll get into a little bit later for obvious reasons. Um, when he stepped down, the opportunity arose for you to become the head coach again. That was back when, not back when, because this was 2 years ago, but that was when Dan Howie was the AD, right? Because
Yes.
he was leaving before Anthony Browning came in,
Correct.
and now he's at my alma mater. He was there my senior year as the
Yep.
guidance director. So I got to
Yep.
know. I actually got our partnership that we have with Woodbury football. We do all of their home games and stuff. Um, that came up because of Dan Howie. He said, "Hey, I know Anthony Browning, and they're offering blank for all of the
Oh
Woodbury home
well.
games." So he got me in touch with them, and now we're still entering our second year with Woodbury football. So I'm very blessed about
Yes,
that.
sir.
But what was how did that opportunity come up for you? Did Woodbury approach you? Did you approach them about the head coaching position? Because obviously, when the head coaching position reopened after Lionel Payne stepped down, Grant Shivers was no longer the athletic director, the one that you
All right.
resigned under your first time. It was Dan Howie.
Right.
So were the circumstances different? How was that process like?
I mean, it was just a regular application process.
Right.
The job's open. You send your application in. They email you back if you're interested in an interview, and you set the interview up. So it was really just regular. It wasn't
Wasn't
anything
anything
different.
special?
I mean, it's a special place. I just it wasn't the application process wasn't anything special. It's just if a head job is open, you can apply for it, and if you get an email back, you see where it takes you. So that's kind of how that all went down. Um, but just regular application, regular interview process, all that good stuff. So
And then after that, you got hired. First year back, lost in the first round of the playoffs, and then second year, of course, is where we are in the present day.
yes, sir.
Returning to your alma mater for a second time, coaching for a second time, dealing with an entirely new group of kids since 4 or 5 years had passed since your first tenure came to a abrupt end, and then of course you guys win the sectional championship. What I really
Yeah.
liked and what we talked about, when we had our pregame conversations or postgame conversations or whatnot, when we talked about this, that, and the other thing, something that always came up was the schedule. And just when we talked in the off season about what games we wanted to cover, excuse me, a big thing that came up was out of town scheduling. This year
Yep.
alone, you played Egg Harbor Township in the Boardwalk Classic, Archbishop Carroll, Atlantic City, Norristown, PA, the Patrick School, which wasn't the national team but still a very respectable state team, if I'm correct.
Correct.
That was not the national team. Okay.
That was the
Um,
regional team. Yep.
okay. And then Wildwood Catholic, RV on Martin Luther King Day, which we were there for, Bishop Eustace, Elizabeth, Gloucester Catholic, Academy of the New Church, Camden East Side, and that. So yeah,
Yep.
that's a lot of places. And one of the things that we talked about before the Glassboro game, which, like we said, we'll go into further detail about the Glassboro game in a couple of minutes. But um,
Yeah.
you told me that it was more important that your team and your players were tough and ready to go, then you valued that more than having like a one seed per se in South Jersey Group 1, because you guys were the 5 this year, this past season. And if you had scheduled easier cakewalk teams, there's a chance that you could have gotten to be a 1 or a 2. If you scheduled, bottom of the barrel group 3s and 4s or even group 2s, there's a chance that you could have gotten there. But you chose the road less traveled, which is scheduling the hardest teams imaginable. Which, let's be honest, Woodbury did lose a lot of those games, but there's no
Yeah.
regrets there. You know, you toughened up, and
No.
obviously with the sectional championship in tow, the results proved that you were ready. So, what goes into, as a head coach, what goes into making a really tough schedule like that and finding a way to make sure that your kids are ready for the challenges ahead?
I think it just goes to there's just no gimmies. Like we got to be ready, and it goes to the practice prep and understanding. Like, listen, like we can't take a day off. Like this is it. Like, all right, we got Haddonfield today. Guess what? We got Camden Eastside tomorrow. Like, you know what I mean? Like it's just there's no gimmies. And I needed to see I needed to see with kind of a newer team of kids coming together, how fast they can gel together and get through adversity. I seen something, I seen a quote from the UFC fights this past weekend,
Right.
and Alexander Volkanovski. He said, "Adversity is a privilege," and I thought that was great. I wish he would have said that 10 months ago before we started the season, because that quote is exactly what our team kind of was about this year. We went through it all. We grinded it out. I think we lost six straight at one point.
Hmm.
I think we were 6-11 at one point.
Yeah, there was a
And a lot of
streak where
people
you
were
lost
counting us
six of
out.
seven. Yeah.
Yeah, a lot of people were counting us out. We had some tough, 2 point, 3 point losses here and there. And I just said, you just got to stick to it, guys. Like, we got to keep doing what we're doing. We're a smaller team. We're playing against guys. I mean, the Patrick School had a 6'10", 6'11" kid, a couple 6'8s. Elizabeth was big. Um, I just wanted to play teams that would punch us in the mouth early and often, to kind of get the most out of our guys. Because I had a feeling like if we gone in against these tough teams that the playoffs weren't going to be as hard because we've already seen every kind of style. We've played the Bishop Eustaces. We've played the Jay Flanagans at Rancocas Valley. I mean, we played the chess matches, and then we played the checkers matches against Elizabeth, against St. Patrick's, against Camden Eastside, where it was just a slugfest. And we played everybody in between. So getting those guys to buy in and getting together was awesome. I will give you a little preview for next year,
Oh boy.
for the Boardwalk Classic.
Do I have to edit this out?
No, it
Okay.
looks like we're gonna. It looks like at the Boardwalk Classic we're gonna be playing Wildwood Catholic and
Ooh.
Plainfield
All
at the
right.
Boardwalk Classic.
Plainfield.
So
All right.
Yup.
Whew.
So we're looking forward to that. Plainfield is phenomenal. Coach Boren's
Absolutely.
great. We tried to get a game going this year, but they had some scheduling issues. So we're trying to get it working for the Boardwalk. That's going to be a cool game for us, to go up against those guys. And the Downs, like I don't duck anything. I mean, we played Atlantic City. We're looking to play them again next year. I think we got that set up as well. So we're gonna be playing. We're gonna be having a super similar schedule this year. I want my guys going up against the best in the state, and outside the state. So, if I can make it happen, and Mr. Browning can make it happen, he was phenomenal in helping me put this schedule together. He thought I was nuts most times, but that's fine.
Honestly, that's a
That's
fair
my guy.
reaction. That
Yeah,
is a
that's my
fair
guy.
reaction.
I'll tell you what, Mr. Browning's been doing a phenomenal job. Coming in kind of like halfway through a little bit through the season last year.
Right.
Um, he's been great. Him, Mr. Bell, the superintendent, all of them have been a great support system for me. And the principal, Mr. Dobbins, all of them have been a great support system. They love their sports. They love their basketball. It was a very fun year. So kind of all of us buying in, and just seeing the team kind of get through adversity was special, man. Seeing those guys work, and just seeing them like not take a play off, and get after it and get after each other in practice was special. So we're looking forward to doing it again.
Absolutely. Absolutely. By the way, bless you for about the 8 times that you've sneezed today,
That,
which is
yeah,
okay.
no,
It's
no. The
okay.
weather goes from it's been going from 80 degrees to 40
It
degrees
was 60
back
today.
to
It was
65
beautiful.
degrees.
It
It's
was
been terrible.
beautiful. It was absolutely beautiful. So yeah, let's
It's
talk about
beautiful today.
let's talk about Glassboro. Let's talk about the Glassboro game, the one that I was at,
Yes, sir.
the one that 4 hours before the game I almost didn't go to. Fun fact. Um, we couldn't.
Really?
So that night, we couldn't find a producer for the game. And you know how it is for basketball. The laptop that I am talking to you through right now is the same one that we use for every single broadcast. Um, and it's not easy to do it alone. Like I have my soundboard, I have my headset, but I'm also controlling a camera. And if I was doing it alone, I'd have to start and stop the clock, take us out of commercial breaks, and it would severely interfere from me being able to do proper commentary. So I'm calling people left and right. I'm going, who's available? Who's doing this game?
Yeah.
Because I'm panicking because I'm like, this is a playoff game, and either because I would rather, in my mind, I'm the kind of person that would rather not go than do it alone and do a bad job. Because I don't
Right.
want to do a bad job. I'm the kind of person that if I have a bad broadcast and if I have a really crappy job and I don't do it right, I'm gonna think about it for a couple days.
For
So
sure.
eventually, my buddy Matt, shout out Matt, he's what's it called? He is a very interesting guy. I call him at I call him at like 3 o'clock, maybe 2 or 3, and I'm like, hey, I'm doing
Okay.
a game tonight. You know, do you want to just come over and can we do this thing? Because he's done a couple of
Yeah.
games for me in the past. He did the one at Pensgrove versus Deptford, I think it was earlier in the season, and he's a basketball
Okay.
fan. He's a big basketball fan.
Yeah.
Big North Carolina fan, like, or that's his thing. So
Right.
I call him and he says, "Yeah, let's do it." And I'm like, "Thank the Lord," because I don't know. I don't care if
Matt.
this game's a 20 or 30 point blowout. And he's a night owl too. He works an overnight
Yeah.
shift over at Amazon, and
Okay.
so it just happened to be one of his days off. And then we went over to do the game anyway. So then we get there, and then we set up, and we do our thing, and then of course the play comes around, as I like to say,
Yeah.
the best seventh place finish I've ever had, as I like to say.
There it is.
That was a wild 24 hours. That was a insane 24 hours. If
You're not
I
kidding.
still get likes, like Instagram notifies you of your likes.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Um, I do it all the time, and I just check to see right now the number. See if I can point my camera at it. I'm gonna point it on the camera back at home. It says a shot for the ages at the top has 7,126 likes and right about 146,000 views on Instagram. I get
Jeez.
comment notifications on there all the time because it gets shuffled into people's algorithms. But
Right.
what a play! I mean
Oh yeah.
that is something that I don't think I can ever see recreated a thousand times if I tried. I could do basketball games for another 10 years, and I don't think I'm going to see something like that ever again. Um, let's walk through that a little bit. First of all, Glassboro hits a shot. They drain the clock with like a minute 30 left. They hit a shot with 2 seconds left, and then the clock hits zero on the
Right.
video board. And I'm saying Glassboro's going to win this game. And then it gets informed to me that you had a timeout and you called it.
Yep.
One of the one of the weirdest things about Jersey is not having a shot clock. I mean, I
Don't get me started, Dan.
trust me, the floor is yours. I
Yeah.
will just
No.
say, in my opinion, it would be good for the sport, but it would be unsustainable for really small schools because they would have to hire and pay another person to do it, and they would
Correct.
have to install them in all of the gyms, which would be
Correct.
a multi-year process. So as much as I want it there, unless it's unless we find a really cheap way to install them at all of the gyms, then I just don't think it's happening, unfortunately. But
Right. No.
either
You're
way,
right.
I assume you're on a similar page.
Yeah, I would like a shot clock. It doesn't have to be 30 seconds, but like a 35-second shot clock would be nice. I
Better
mean, the
than
game's getting faster.
oh,
The game's getting faster. Like even teams that, take a while to score over the years, they're even picking up their offensive output. So the game's just played at a faster pace. You might as well put a shot clock in. I don't see
exactly.
how it could hurt. But I do understand the money aspect, the financial aspect of it, especially for small schools. So I
Oh yeah.
understand your position on it for sure.
Coaches and athletic directors, I'm sure, have very different opinions on installing a shot clock. Let's just say that. I mean, the semifinal game, I did a non-public B semifinal game between Rutgers Prep and Holy Cross. Final
Yep.
score at I'm sorry, the halftime score was 15 to 14. I mean,
Yep.
there's no reason in 16 minutes of basketball it should be like that. So, and it's
They're
just
two good teams too.
they're two very good teams. Rutgers Prep
Very good teams.
was very impressive, and I think they won that game by 8 or 9. on their
Yeah.
way to the state final. But either way, um, yes, that play. So Glassboro takes the lead, 2-0. You call a timeout. What is going on in your head at that moment when you call the timeout? Glassboro's up by what's it, one? They were up 58 something. I think they were up by one, and then you had two
Yeah.
sec. They put 2 seconds back on the clock. You used your last timeout, and then Glassboro comes out in a zone defense. I mean, first of all, in the timeout, what are you saying to your guys, and how are you getting them ready for such a big moment? If
So
you
at
if you
first,
can remember it,
at first I took my assistants aside because we watched a lot of film.
right?
We I have six assistants and we watch film. We're on huddle on a daily basis. We watch film all the time.
Hmm.
And the one thing we learned was that after every timeout, um, after every ATO, Glassboro in particular will go a 1-2-2 zone kind of defense, a trap defense after every timeout. So we kind of knew that going in, to be honest with you. So the one thing we wanted to do, we didn't know we didn't know Saab was going to be at the top of their zone
Okay.
right there. So I told Jaden Farmer. Obviously, the kids today don't know Valpo. Um, the Valpo play,
Yeah,
the full court play in the NCAA tournament. But
you can show them,
I,
but they
you
might
know,
go in one out, in one ear out the
yeah,
other.
yeah. So I just told Jane Farmer, I said, we'll screen the top of the zone there. We'll hit Kevin in the middle. When that happens, Dev, you go on the run. And shoot the best shot you think you could shoot. Um, and I didn't know that they would kind of like, not that they would fall back a little bit, but as a half court shot goes, he kind of got off a pretty decent one. I mean, other than the fact it went in, I mean, it was kind of like, he caught it, got in stride and let it go. And sometimes, you know what, Dan, like it's better to be lucky than to be good sometimes. It was a war that game. It was a scrap. Coach Payne had his boys ready to go. They're a very athletic team. A lot of their football players play basketball too.
Yeah, they've always
They're
been incredibly athletic.
always been like that, athletic, um, physical, and um, just a really tough matchup for us. And they wore us down at the third and fourth quarter. They were out rebounding us. The game was kind of turning the other way, no matter if I was calling a timeout or not. And like I said, like we just, at the end of the day, Devin made that shot, and it kind of, led us to the rest of the time, like rest of the playoffs. I think it was a great game. I think it's one, I would say, top 10 moments in Woodbury sports history, probably, just because of the end result. Like
Oh
we
yeah.
ended up winning the sectional title from it. So you got to put it in there. It was just a very cool moment for the kids. Just having that social media experience, and then it being on Sports Center was great. I mean, it was just, and just having like a lot of these kids are new to the town and new to Woodbury, so
Right.
they were kind of new to like what Woodbury Pride was.
Hmm.
And Woodbury Pride is a real thing.
Oh,
We always
absolutely.
stress it, but just having the town there and just the pure joy, and everyone hugging each other, and staying late, and just enjoying the moment was what it's all about. And it was a cool moment for everybody. But that game kind of got us ready for the rest of the playoffs. I don't know any tougher game you could play going into the rest of the playoffs like that. It got us ready for Audubon. It got us ready for Pittman, and ultimately got us ready for Haddon Township. So, we needed that game. Obviously we did, but we needed that game, to get us ready for the rest of them. So just like the hard regular season was, that kind of tough, game in the first round, like we had to get out of that. That wasn't a normal 5-12. Kenny Smith came into the season late.
Right.
He's a very good athlete, very good player. So
Oh, absolutely.
that wasn't your normal 5-12, because we're not a normal 5, but they weren't a normal 12 going into the season either. So,
Yeah, I mean
we had to
Kenny
be
Smith
ready.
rushed for like 450 yards in the state championship game
Yeah,
against Cedar Grove. Like the kid's insane.
kid's a freak.
Yeah,
The kid's a freak.
in a good
He's
way.
an athletic freak. So, and Saab is too. All the Saab kids are.
Hmm.
I don't know if there's like gamma ray radiation going on in that household, but it's it's something. So That was a good game for us. So that's something we'll always remember. And it's just a great moment for the kids and their families too.
Oh, absolutely. And you talk about Woodbury pride. I mean, that is so important. I see going down to downtown so many times, how many times there's people wearing, herd hoodies and herd
Hmm.
t-shirts and stuff like that. Everybody knows everybody again. That's what the Colonial Conference is about. And,
Yep.
again, in that situation, we're talking about I have never seen a basketball gym rocking for so long
Hmm.
after that play was over.
Yeah.
I when the shot went in, first of all, if the shot didn't go, we would have talked about it like a Gordon Hayward Butler situation where, it could have
Right.
gone, but it didn't, and what would have happened if it did? It's not like it was completely
Right.
off. It was close, but then it did go. It banked off the backboard and then went in. My first reaction is, as I'm watching this play unfold, I can almost see it in slow motion, which is very rare that I can see that. But I remember very specifically in my mind, I'm thinking, yeah, I just, it's got a chance, but let's just see where it goes. And then it hits off the
Yeah.
backboard, and I'm thinking, oh, and then it goes in, and I'm like, oh, and that's just my
Yeah.
genuine reaction. What you hear
Yep.
on the call is not, it's not thought out,
It's not you.
it's not scripted, it's just, oh, like that just
Yeah.
happened. And then
Yep.
I got to think of something, I got to think of something like creative because everybody's rushing the court, things are going everywhere. The grandstands were literally shaking to the point where, like, those wooden beams, I had to hold on to one of them
Yeah.
because I thought I was going to fall over. And that's where I came up with the line that brought the Cap Pain Gymnasium to its knees because I literally
Yep.
just, I felt like felt like it was an earthquake. And then even as we were leaving, we talked to everybody. Everybody's still like, hands like this, like, what just happened?
Yeah.
20 minutes after the game's over, we're going to the
Yeah.
car. Everybody's like, whoa, what just happened? Like, I've never seen this before. So it's
Yeah.
just like, that is such an incredible moment. And um, it's something that I don't know if I'll ever see before because I did so much for not just your program, but it did a decent amount for me too. I was in
Sure.
I was walking into my college today because I'm a student worker at RCSJ, and
Okay.
one of the janitors was just cleaning up the bathroom and had his mop bucket out, and he said, "You're the guy that did that Woodbury call, right? The one that was on Sports Center."
Yeah.
And I'm just like,
There you
"Yeah,
go.
that was 2 months ago, but sure." Like,
Yeah.
that's just still what I might be if I don't go professional. I mean, I hope I do, but that might be a defining moment in my
It
time.
is.
But yeah, you talk about Woodbury was not a typical 5, Glassboro was not a typical 12,
No.
and it was so unique, that game,
Yes.
because I see so many times teams crash and burn as like a 1 or 2 seed. They play this really, I mean, I don't want to say bad, but this kind of undeserving team that's won like 5 or 6 games, and then they win by like 50 points, and then in the second or third round they don't play well because they're not prepared. And you guys were
Right.
prepared. If Glassboro wasn't as good as they were, or if you played a 13 or a 14, maybe the circumstances would have been different. If you didn't schedule all of those really tough and incredibly nuanced out of conference schedules in the regular season, maybe it would have been different. So no, I absolutely agree with you there, and just what a moment that was for Devin Williams.
Yeah.
We didn't even realize it was Devin Williams at first. I had to rewind the tape, not the tape, but the
Yeah.
YouTube
Yeah.
video on my
I
phone.
hear.
I had to look at it. I'm like, wait, who was that? Was that Mark Kozowski? No, it wasn't. Was that? No, it wasn't. It wasn't him. So then I literally just run up to Anthony and I'm like, who was that? And he's like, that was Devin Williams. And I'm like, oh.
Yeah.
So yeah, that was just such an incredible moment. CBS Philadelphia picked it
Sure.
up, um,
Nice.
and NBC I think also
Huh.
they reached out about the video. They were very cordial about it. They were like, hey, do you mind if we use your video with credit? I mean, CBS was the same way. That's how the professionals do it.
Yeah.
They reach out
Right.
through their PR director and they say, hey, can we use this? In the news at 11 o'clock, and then I call my mom and I'm like, DVR this. So yeah, my DVR has a handful of those clips in there. But
There
either
you go.
way, no, just what a moment that was, and it absolutely
Absolutely.
prepared you for the sectional playoffs ahead with Audubon, who also had their own buzzer beater of their own, Pittman, who had possibly the most unstoppable player I've ever seen, Elijah Crispin, except you stopped him. Um, we talked
We
about
did the best we could.
did the best you could, but you were pretty successful. I said in the post game
Yeah.
when Woodbury won, I said, what did they do? They double guarded Elijah Crispin, and that's how they won. I mean, I love Pittman. You know, I'm in Pittman right now,
Yeah.
but um,
Yeah.
no, I mean it's you don't get much better than that. And I don't know where he's going to school, but he is he should be going somewhere very far.
You,
Um,
you know that was what was funny about that game
what
with
you got?
Pittman was, you know, we got done Audubon
Right,
and we were looking at different ways with Pittman, different videos, and we were talking. And my one assistant, Isaiah Roberts, who played with me at Woodbury, he played at Navy, and he's coached for a while. He's going to be a head coach really, really soon. He was like, we should just go man because we've been playing a 12, a 1-2-2 kind of half court trapping zone a lot.
right.
Um, and we were like, you know what? Like, that's a great idea. Like, let's roll with it. So we decided to go man, taking a chance, and we told the kids, like, listen, you guys are, we're holding you guys accountable for the way you guard this game. You know, you guys want to go man, let's go man then. I said, but you guys are accountable for help side. You're accountable for being in the passing lanes. You're accountable for your communication. We're putting the accountability on you guys. And they took advantage of it. They played the best man to man I've seen them play in a long time. And you know that's credit to Coach Zay for sure, because he was like he put the idea out there and said it would work, and we all agreed. So that was something new that we tried against Pittman because originally we were supposed to 2-2, and I think part of them felt like that's what they were getting ready for, and that's what they prepped for, and that kind of helped us a little bit because they had to kind of adjust to man, in my
Right.
opinion. So if we watch the film back, so also with Devin Williams making 4 threes in the first quarter, probably was a little bit of an adjustment too.
Yeah,
So
I
that
said
always
it was the
helps.
Devin Williams show out there today.
Yeah,
You know,
yeah,
when he hit four threes in the first quarter, I was like Gus Johnson out
yeah,
there, just like, oh, he did it again. You know, it ain't from
yeah,
half court, but it counts just the same. You know, I'm thinking of crazy things to talk about, but
yeah.
yeah. So now that we've gone over the span of your career, before we part, I have a couple of opinion questions. That
Sure,
maybe don't talk about things in how they happened, but maybe things about how they would happen. One of the
sure,
biggest talking points in college basketball today is NIL. It has been for the last couple of years now. Tony Bennett of Virginia retired because of it. I mean, he directly sourced NIL as a part of his retirement, and because you played at a Division II university, um, maybe NIL, if you had played there today, wouldn't have played as big of a role if you were at like a Power Five or something like that. But either way,
sure,
NIL is a part of college basketball that nobody can seem to avoid, and it's kind of one of those things where it's an unstoppable force moving into an immovable object, and what's going to happen. So, what's your just as a coach who played at the college level, and just a general observer of basketball in general, what's your opinion on it, and do you think that it's something that's good for the game?
I mean, I mean, it's not going away.
Right.
Um, I mean, this kind of stuff's been happening forever. It's just kind of been out in the open now. You know, back you're talking about back with in football terms like 2001 to 2003 University of Miami players, right?
Oh
So,
yeah, and Reggie Bush.
um, and Reggie Bush, right? So I'm a big advocate for players getting paid. You know, it's your name, image, and likeness that's getting put out there. I think what they're gonna do, possibly. I mean, I'm not a mind reader, but I think they're gonna put a hard cap on what you can give the players,
Mm,
in terms of what schools can have, kind of like what the pros do, in some sports, maybe besides baseball. But just give a hard cap. Each school gets 4 million or 5 million or something like that. That's probably an idea that they could, flirt with and see what's going on. But I'm an advocate with players getting paid. I'm not really an advocate of, um, players moving all over the joint. But at
like
the
the
same
transfer
time, I'd
portal, it's
be a
so.
hypocrite because,
Oof.
well, I'd be, Well, at the end of the day, then I'd be kind of a hypocrite because I've been to a lot of programs too, coaching in my time.
Right.
So, looking for an opportunity. So, um, I'm an advocate of players getting paid. I think they will kind of keep it to a certain number as the years go on because I think over time the numbers are just going to get bigger and bigger. So, I think it is the way for to keep kids in school though.
Mm.
You see a lot of one and dones, but now I don't see much of it anymore because now college players are getting paid 1, 2, sometimes $3 million. So um, it's a way to keep kids in school, which is always good. But I think they'll put a hard cap on it sooner rather than later.
Yeah, I think your opinion pretty much sums up mine as well because like I was talking to somebody earlier a couple days ago about it, and the whole Nico Imaleva situation over at Tennessee, and um,
Yeah,
where he was literally holding out, like I'm trying to think of who did it recently in the NFL, or even Ben Simmons in the NBA held out because of contract negotiations. Um, Holding out is something that is usually reserved for the pros, and
right,
it was looked on very poorly by fans and administrators alike that this Tennessee football player was putting himself over the program. And I think that players should be getting compensated for stuff like name, image, and likeness, but I don't think it's being used in the way that it should be. And I also agree that we shouldn't be, excuse me, back in the Reggie Bush era, where things are getting stripped and forfeited and taken away because somebody gets free lunch or picks up a 20 off the side of the road. So there's levels to it. There's levels to it. I mean, the
yeah,
Reggie Bush did not receive $1 million. If he received $1 million, we'd be talking about him as the greatest fraudster in college football history. He received a couple $100 to help him get stuff to eat over at USC. Um, I don't think that it was that serious, but at the time it was. And
right,
people are still of the mentality that, oh, you're getting a free education, isn't that enough? Well, no. Even if you are getting a free education, think of everything you have to spend in training equipment, in travel, in food and drink. The fact that I
mm,
was just at Target today. I picked up groceries to make tacos. $63 for maybe less than a week's worth of food. Now, of course, that was
you need
15
to go to
years ago.
Aldi's, Dan.
I don't know if there's one around
You need to
Pittman.
go. Yeah, you need to go to Aldi's.
No, trust me.
Save you about $45.
Aldi is very good. I just haven't been there in a long time. I think the
There you
closest
go.
one is
All right.
right off the Black Horse Pike. But Aldi
Yeah.
discussions aside, um, they do have very good banana bread, I will say. But
Yeah, I think Dan too. With your point, like a lot of college athletes now have agents. So
exactly.
with the holdouts, it's like you're paying them like pro athletes. So, in a way, like these agents are going to go about the same ways they go about it with pro athletes too, with their college athletes in terms of getting paid. So, you're seeing more of that now going nowadays. I still think it's great basketball. Like I enjoyed this NCAA tournament. I enjoyed more than a lot of them.
Right.
I love the way Houston plays. I thought Florida had a great team. A lot of the games were awesome. Duke had a great run. Like, a lot of these, the McNeese win in the first round was awesome. So,
Oh, I was 14 for
I think,
14 in day one. I was great, and then
yeah,
UC San Diego blew up my bracket. But
yeah.
no, you're absolutely
So,
right.
but that's how the times are changing. So,
Yeah, I didn't think
I think they'll come to an agreement with something though.
I didn't think March Madness was as bad as people said it was this year. I mean, people I think have way too high of a bar. They want all of the small schools that make it to win, and they
Right.
want all of the big schools that have always won everything forever, like your Dukes and your North Carolina. They want to lose. They want them to lose.
Right.
So not every Cinderella story can come true, and not every
Right.
dominating program can make it. That the two can't
Right.
exist at the same time. So
No.
you traded off a really strong Cinderella run for the best teams in college basketball. There was no doubt about who was the best team. I mean, there might be, depending on if you want to ask Houston or Duke or something like that. But Florida
Right.
was a number one seed that had a phenomenal regular season, played tough opponents, and they rightfully won the national championship. There's no doubt. There's no question. If Gordon
Yep.
Hayward's shot went in for Butler, we would have been saying, well, Butler wasn't the best team that year. They just got lucky. There was no luck. That's just how it was.
Right. No, that's how it
So
is.
yeah,
Win or go home.
you traded off a very unpredictable tournament for a very good tournament in terms of talent and in terms of dominance.
Right.
So that's just how I felt about it. But no, I mean the NIL and the transfer portal. I think that the transfer portal has also gotten a little bit too far. I saw a number the other day that said that over 25%, I don't know the exact number, it was something like 1,300. 25% of all women's college basketball players across D1, D2, and D3 are in the transfer portal at one stage or another. It was something like between
Yeah.
20 and 25%, and I'm just like, that can't be sustainable. It's not. It's after a couple of years, something's going to break, and not everybody can keep playing, hacky sack with their, with their college education, because it's not only not good for the players, it's not good for the education itself. If you're moving from Delaware to East Carolina to Syracuse and then over to North Dakota State, well, guess what? That's a lot of travel. That's a lot of
Right.
travel, and educationally, that's not going to be good for the athlete at the end of the day.
I think a lot of kids are taking a risk too, because unless you have a solid idea where you're going, because now they have like a do not contact thing, like when
Right.
they enter it, right? Because they kind of know where they're going.
Hmm.
But you test the waters. I mean, it's almost like getting recruited all over again. So you want to make sure it's the right fit, and you always take a risk. So it's while a lot of people were in there, a lot of people are taking a risk. So you just want to make sure you find the right fit, find what's good for you. Find a coach who believes in you, will make you work, and just follow the game plan. So I you know, I say good luck to all of them that enter, and try and find the fit for them. Because you never want to. At the end of the day, they're college kids. Like, you never want to see them not succeed.
Right.
So, if I had a kid who, Jalil White, who I coached at Wildwood Catholic, who
Hmm.
left Temple and had to find a good fit, and ended up finding a nice fit at LaSalle for himself, and taking that risk for him, and it worked out for him. But sometimes it doesn't work out for every kid, and they have to get bounced back on their feet and find something good. So we all got to root for them, to make sure they find the right place for them. So that's important too.
Yeah, and what's it called? I think that a big problem with the transfer portal is that now coaches are kind of selling false promises. And
Sure.
I mean, I'm not naming names because I don't know who the names are. But with this many players in the transfer portal, there's no way that a coach can be telling 30 kids, yeah, you're the next big thing. You're going to be a great spot on my team, and then they don't make it, or they get very limited minutes. So it's kind of this balancing act of the coaches are kind of like these sales reps that are knocking on your door trying to install solar panels. Like, they're trying to appease everyone. Meanwhile, they're really only going to be keeping a handful of those guys. The way I think about it too is like Rick Pitino. He has said
Mm-hmm.
straight up he is not recruiting out of any high school. He's only recruiting out of the transfer portal. Because why does he need to recruit out of high school? That's less
Yeah.
spots, and at the high school level there is much more of a uncertainty. So if he wants a player to go to St. John's, he'll go to a lower D1 for a year, see how he does, and then bring him to New York. That's just what he does. And Rick
Yeah, and that's what
Pitino
I've
has
been
been
that's
one
what
of
I've
those
been telling a
coaches
lot of
to
my high school
embrace
kids
NIL.
too. Like, a lot of my high school kids, that I coach or train, it's just like, you know, there's nothing wrong with, a Division 3 or Division 2, or a low level D1. Like, go get in where you fit in. Get in that is going to give you the best education, the best chance to get on the court and play. Because as a coach, you want to sell a kid an opportunity.
Right.
You never want to sell a kid a role. Like, you want to sell a kid an opportunity. Like, you have an opportunity to work hard and earn your way here, and be a valuable member of this team. As much as we want to do the salesman role, like, I always want to sell kids an opportunity, to get to where they want to be. So, and that comes with work. So, I think if more coaches went that route, I think they'd be, they wouldn't have so much of a harder time in the transfer portal at all.
Absolutely. And one last parting question for you, Mark. It's been excellent talking
Sure.
to you. Have had some great insight and some great stories here from this conversation that we've had. However, The question that we always part with any of our guests, regardless of sport or background, is what I call the canvas question. You can really kind of
Okay.
paint your own picture with it. Um, from any time in your career, whether it's your time at Woodbury as a high school player, your time at Chestnut Hill, your time in Spain, maybe even back at Woodbury, any of your assistant jobs, anything like that. I'm literally running out of
Mhm.
fingers to talk about what
Yeah,
you have
right.
done.
Where I've been at.
Kind of been an everywhere kind of guy. But
Hmm.
we always end with a favorite story. Um,
Okay.
and the floor will be yours on this. So anything from any part of your career, it can be a creative story, it can be a funny story, it can be a inspiring or thought-provoking story, anything that would be good to share with the world because we've had funny things from Andrew Daly talking about an Eastern coach ratting him out for, you know, kind of oogling the girls at prom. And then we've talked about some really good stories with Angel Rodriguez over at Salem talking about, what it means to be a leader and what it means to be a good coach. But I just want to hear from you. The floor is yours. Favorite story,
Oh
any part of
man,
your career.
you're putting me on the spot.
That's what I do all the
Um,
time. That is our parting question.
God. Um, Let me see. My favorite story. Uh, that's a tough one because I'm trying to think.
You've been
Um,
everywhere.
yeah. It's hard. I'm trying to figure one out. There's been a few. I would say my favorite story has to be like probably the playoffs my 17-18 year with that team because
Okay.
there's just like so much going on. I mean, it was every type of game. Like we just playing. To be honest with you, like we lost to Haddon Township, and they had a player miss two foul shots at the buzzer, and we ended up winning by one. We could have got sent home if he made both of them. In the second round. Then playing a team like Pensgrove where you have grown adults chanting at kids, and the gym was going crazy the whole time, and there might have been like 20 police officers there. That was a story within itself. And then the Glassboro game and getting the states. I would say like that whole year was just my favorite story overall because I mean I don't think my story's done yet. I don't think I have a favorite story because it's probably coming up in the future. But I would say my favorite story so far was just that whole run um, because you have a group that told you where they want to be, um, and they got there. And that's so rare nowadays because it doesn't happen like that. Maybe it happens 2 years after, or 3 years after, or down the road, with a new coach or with something different. But they kind of manifested where they wanted to be and told me like we want to be here, like we're gonna get here. And um, I think just the way it all went down, just the ebbs and flows of that year were so great, and just the way it ended up, I think that's my favorite story. I mean, I've got some good ones from Wildwood Catholic too, but just with Taj and Jalil and Martin and Jacob and Jake and all those guys, and just funny stuff with that group was awesome too. That group was special. We beat Rutgers Prep that year in 2020, right before COVID happened. We played them in the South Jersey final, um, and um, that group was great because every practice was just awesome. When in doubt, you threw up a lob to Taj or Jalil. That was like half our offense. Martin, who set records at Stockton this past year before he got hurt. He was lighting it up from three. And Jacob Hopping was one of the better players out of there. Like us playing Camden and us playing these big time schools. Like I just have so many stories, but just I think those two spots. I think at Woodbury and at Wildwood Catholic, I had my most enjoyable and most long lasting memories there, just because of the kids that made it happen.
That is absolutely great to hear. Mark, it has been an excellent time talking to you through everything from your high school time at Woodbury, to your time playing in Spain, and of course your first and second tenure at Woodbury, winners in both occasions, and of course your little journeyman travel in the middle there as an assistant at several programs. We wish you the best of luck in the 25 and 26 season in about 8 months' time. It should
Yes,
be a
sir.
fun one. We should be back in the campaign in no time, and of course, we'll be back at Woodbury in no time. Maybe once they get to the varsity baseball level in 2026.
There
So
you go.
there we go. We'll get right back to you at that time. But
All right.
Mark, thank you very much for joining us. It has been an honor talking to you, and of course, with everything that we've discussed over the years, it has been a very great conversation to have with such a smart and intellectual coach. And we hope to see you around in the winter over at the Cat Pain.
Yes, sir. Thanks for having me, brother.
Of course, that will be all for us in episode 19 of The Dan Wilkins Show. Remember, this broadcast is sponsored by Harper Driving School and Rowan College of South Jersey at Gloucester. Our next episode, we're not sure where it's going to be, we're not sure who it's going to be, but we do have a couple of guests lined up that we have to interview in the next couple of days and weeks. I'm Dan Wilkins. Mark DiRugeris is our guest. We will see you next time.